Good evening, students. So, we will be starting class 11, part 2, continuation. Another characteristics of life is metabolism. So, if we see the characteristics of life, characteristics of life also includes metabolism. Okay, it also includes metabolism. All living organisms are made of chemicals. So, as we know that living organisms are made up of chemicals. Okay, living organisms are made up of chemicals. These chemicals, small and big, belongs to various class sizes, functions, etc., are constantly being made and changed into some other molecules. So, these chemicals are maybe small and big, which are made up of molecules, and the chemicals comes under various classes, various classes, sizes, and functions, etc. Okay, functions, etc. are constantly being made. So these are constantly being made, constantly being made and changed into some other biomolecules. Changed into some other biomolecules. Okay. So these conversions are chemical reactions or metabolic reactions. So we can say that these conversions, we can say it as a chemical reaction or a metabolic reaction. Okay, chemical reaction or a metabolic reaction. There are thousands of metabolic reactions occur simultaneously inside all living organisms, be they unicellular and multicellular. All plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism. So, as we know that thousands of metabolic reactions are going. Thousands of metabolic reactions are taking place inside a living organism. Okay? Metabolic reactions are taking place inside a living organisms. Okay? So, in these organisms, we can say that unicellular and multicellular organisms are multicellular and unicellular and multicellular organisms are included in this living organisms. Okay. So all living organisms includes these chemical and metabolic reactions. Okay. So if we see that, all plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism. So all plants and all plants. Sorry for my handwriting, as I'm writing with my mouse. It's not clear. So just it. All plants, animals, fungi, and microbes exhibit metabolism. So they all are going to exhibit this metabolism. Okay. The sum total of all chemical reactions occurring in our body is metabolism. So all total chemical reactions are occurring in our body through metabolism. Okay. Non-living objects exhibit metabolisms. So no non-living objects are not going to. So non-living objects are not going to show any. Not going to show any metabolism. Okay. Why? Because non-livings are objects. Okay. They are not living beings. They are comes under objects. Metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the body in cell-free systems. So we can demonstrate it outside of the body can demonstrate outside the body in cell-free systems. Okay, these metabolic reactions can be demonstrated outside the cell-free systems, outside the body in a cell-free systems, and isolated metabolic reactions outside the body of an organism. So, if we isolate a metabolic reactions outside of an organism performed in the test tube is neither living nor non-living. So, we can perform this metabolic reactions outside the body in a test tube. That means in a laboratory conditions we can conduct these metabolic reactions. Okay? Hence, while metabolism is defining features of all living organisms without exceptions. So, we can say that metabolism is defining the features of all living organisms. Okay? Without exception, isolated metabolic reactions in vitro are not living things, but surely living reactions. So, here metabolism is defining the features of all living organisms without exception. Isolated metabolic reactions in vitro are not living things but surely living reactions. So here what in vitro conditions we are conducting the metabolic reactions where the living and non-living can show this metabolism. Okay. Hence, cellular organizations of body is the defining features of life forms. Perhaps the most obvious and technically complicated features of all living organisms is this ability to sense their surroundings or environments and respond to their environmental stimuli, which could be physical, chemical, or biological. So perhaps we know that obviously, technically, we can say that features of a living organisms might be having a, they are having the ability to sense their surroundings. Okay, due to the sensing of their surroundings, they can respond to the external environmental stimuli through physical, chemical, and biological activities. Okay, we can sense our environment through our sense organs. So we can sense it through our sense organs. Plants respond through external factors like light, water, temperature, other organisms, pollutants, etc. So if we see plants, they are going to respond through external factors. Okay, they are going to respond through external factors like light, water, and temperature, and also other organisms, pollutions, etc. Pollutions, etc. Okay. All organisms from the prokaryotes to the most complex eukaryotes can sense and respond to external cues. So if we see the living organisms, we can here we can sense the environmental cues. Okay. Prokaryotes also can sense the environmental cues. Photoperiod affects reproduction in cells, so they can sense environmental cues. Okay. Photoperiod affects reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. If we see the photoperiod, then they can affect the reproduction rate. Okay, they can affect the reproduction rate in seasonal breeders. Okay, the photoperiod is going to affect the reproduction in seasonal breeders, both plants and animals. So they are going to affect both plants and animals. Okay, all living organisms handle chemicals entering their bodies. So if you see the organisms handle chemicals entering their bodies. Okay, all organisms therefore are aware of their surroundings. So organisms are aware of their surroundings. So due to their sense of having ability to throughout this environmental cues, they can be aware of the surroundings. Okay, human beings is the only organism who is aware of himself. That is has self consciousness. So human beings is the only organisms who can sense the environmental cues. That is that is we can say it as a self consciousness. Okay, so human being is having a self consciousness. Okay, self consciousness. So now consciousness therefore becomes the defining properties of a living organism. So this consciousness comes under the consciousness comes under a properties of a living organism. Okay, property of a living organism. Okay, next. So I'm going to write this as I need space. The other paragraph is there, so I need space, so I'm writing it. Wait a minute. Okay. When it comes to human beings, it is all the more difficult to define the living states. So when it comes to the human beings, means we are going we are going to see that it is all more difficult to define the living state. So it is difficult to define a living state of a human being. Okay, living state of a human being is more difficult. Okay. We observe patients lying in a coma in hospital virtually supported by machines which replace heart and lungs. So if we see the patients in a hospital, patient is in a coma stage. Okay, the patient is in a coma stage in hospital. So through machines, his heart, his or her heart is replaced by a machines. Okay, heart and lungs are replaced by a machines. Means body is present, mind is absent. So mind is dead condition. Okay, mind is in dead condition. So heart and lung functions are going through this machine. Okay, the patient is otherwise brain dead. So the patient we can say it as a brain dead person. Okay, brain dead person who never come back to normal life. So brain dead person can never come back from his coma stage to normal person. He cannot come. Okay, normal stage, normal life. He cannot come. Okay, it is impossible to him. Why? Here the brain is already dead, so he cannot come back to his normal life. Okay. So the patient has no confidence. So here the patient does not have any. So here the patient does not have any no self confidence. Okay? Self consciousness means he is not in a conscious stage. Why? Because his brain is already dead condition. So he is in a brain dead condition. Okay? So that's why he is in a no self conscious. The patient does not have any self consciousness. Are such patient who never come back to normal life, living or non-living? So here the question they are asking the patient whether can come back from this brain dead stage to normal life, either living or non-living. So the answer is no. Once the brain is dead, the person cannot come back from his coming back to his normal life. So he does not, already the brain is dead, so he cannot come back to his normal. This does not occur. Okay. In higher classes, you will come to know that all living phenomena is due to underlying interactions. So in higher classes, we will be learning about the phenomena of underlying the interactions. Okay. Living interactions we will be knowing in the higher classes. Properties of tissues are not present in the constituent cells but arise or as a result of interactions among the constituent cells. So if we see the properties of a tissue, properties of a tissue are not present in a constituents of a cell. Okay, not present in a constituent cells. Okay, but arises results as an interaction, but they can interact with each other. Okay, these tissues can interact among the constituent cells. They does not have, so they so the properties of tissues reacts that it does not show any presence of the constituent cells. Instead, these constituent cells are going to interact with each other. Okay, these constituent cells are going to interact with each other. Similarly, properties of cellular organelles are not present in molecular constituents of the organelle, but arises as a result of interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelle. So, properties of a cellular organisms. If we see the here is what they are saying in constituent cells, as they are does not show any results in a presence of a constant cells. Instead, they interact with each other, right? So, likewise, cellular organisms are also not going to present in a molecular constant stage of an organelle. Instead, it rises to the interactions among the molecular components comprising the organelles. Okay, similar case. This is happening in the cellular organelles. Okay, so the presence of molecular constants of an organelle is not present. Instead, it results in the interaction. Same, it results in the interaction of a molecular components of an organelle. Okay, these interactions it results in emergent properties at higher level of organization. So these interactions are going to take place in a higher level of organizations. Okay, these interactions are going to take place in a higher higher level of organizations. Higher level of organizations. Okay. This phenomena is true in the hierarchy of organizational complex at all levels. So this phenomenon is true for the hierarchical of the organizational complexity of all levels. Okay. Therefore, we can say that living organisms are self-replicating, evolving, self-regulating, interactive systems capable of responding to external stimuli. So, we can say that the living organisms are. So, here we can say that. So, here we can say that a living organism can are self-replicate. Okay, they can self-replicate. They can self-replicating, evolving. They can evolve. Okay, they can evolve, and they can self-regulate by themselves. They can self-regulate. They are self-regulating by themselves through interactive systems. Through interactive systems of responding external stimuli. So these interactive systems are going to respond to external stimuli. Okay, external stimuli. They are going to respond to external stimuli. Okay. now next. Biology is the story of life on Earth. Biology is the story of evolution of living organisms on Earth. So we know that biology is a story of life on Earth. Okay, life on Earth. So biology is also a story of evolution. Okay, it is also a story of evolution. Okay, living organisms. Okay, all living organisms, present, past, and future, are linked to one another. So as we know that all living organisms are connected with the past, present, and future. So these three conditions are interlinked with each other. They are interlinked with each other. Okay? They are interlinked with each other, and they are going to share their sharing of the common genetic material by various degrees. Okay? They are going to share their genetic material, but to varying degrees. But by varying degrees. Okay. Sorry for my handwriting, as it is looking very horrible because I am writing with my mouse. So my handwriting is looking ugly. Sorry for that. So now next, we will be seeing the diversity in the living organisms. Okay. Diversity in the living organisms. If you look around, you will see a large variety of living organisms. So, large variety of living organisms are observed through our surroundings. Be it potted plants, insects, birds, your pets, or other animals and plants. So, we are going to observe around us, potted plants are there, insects are there, birds are there, and young pets, all other animals and plants are also we are going to observe through our surroundings. Okay. There are also several organisms that you cannot see with your naked eye, but they are all around you. So there are some living several organisms. There are several organisms which we cannot be seen by our naked eyes. Okay, through our we cannot see through our naked eyes, right? Okay, so they are present in our surroundings. Okay, they are not cannot see through naked eyes. Okay, so those organisms are also going to present in our surroundings all around us. If you were to increase the area that you make observations in, the range and variety of organisms that you see would increase. So if we increase the area surrounding which we are going to observe, as the area is increasing, the objects are also included around the surroundings. Okay. Obviously, if you were to visit a dense forest, you would be probably much see a much greater number and kinds of living organisms in it. So, if we visit a dense forest, so in dense forest we see that we would probably see that greater number of animals. Okay, greater number of and different kinds of living organisms in that denser forest. Okay, each different kind of plants, animals, and or organisms that you see represents a species. So we are going to observe the different kinds of plants, the different kinds of plants, animals, or organisms. Okay, or organisms in a denser forest, right? So which represents the these all are plants, animals, and organisms comes under a species. Right? This comes under a different species. So now next. The number of species that are known and described ranges between 1.7. So this number of species These number of species are known, described ranging from 1.7 to 1.8 millions. Okay, they are present at 1.7 to 1.8 millions. This refers to a biodiversity. So we can refer this as a biodiversity. Okay, it represents this as a biodiversity, or the number and the types of organisms present on the number on the earth. Okay, so we can represent biodiversity as a number and types of organisms present on earth. Types of organisms present on earth. Okay, present on earth. We should remember here that as we explore new areas and even old ones, new organisms are continuously being identified. So this is the dense forest. As we are increasing the areas, the new organisms, new organisms are found. Old ones are found. Okay, old ones of the plants, and continuously being identified. Okay, new areas and even older ones and the new organisms are continuously being identified as the area is increasing. Okay, as stated earlier, there are millions of plants and animals in the world. We know that plants and animals in our own area by their local names. These local names would vary from place to place, even with the country. So, as we know that in earlier cases, there are millions of plants and animals, right, in the world. Okay, in our world, there are millions of plants and animals present in this world. Okay, so plants and animals in our own area are by local names. So we can place that to plants and animals, whatever we are observing through our surroundings. These plants and animals are having their own local names. Okay, these local names would vary from. So these local names can vary from place to place. Okay, place to place or country to country. Place to place or even by a within a country itself. Okay. Probably you would recognize the confusion that would be created if we did not find any ways and means to talk to each other. So if we could not recognize the plants and animals which are present surrounding us, so it is most difficult, right? So there are so many plants, so many animals present similarly, right? So we will be confusing. We are getting confused by these plants and animals which are present throughout the world. Okay, to refer to the organism we are talking about. To talk a particular plant, if there are same type of species, then we will be getting confused, right? Likewise, animals also. Hence, there is a needed to standardize the naming of the living organisms. So we need to standardize this. We need to standardize this particular plants and animals in a naming. We have to standardize this by naming a living organisms. Okay, by naming the living organisms, such that a particular organism is known by the same name all over the world. So if the plant is having the same similar name, so if we standardize this species under the naming of living organisms, then we can easily rectify this species. Okay, so it is needed to name the living organisms. Okay, we have to standardize the living organisms in an order. So this process we will be calling it as a nomenclature. So standardizing the particular name, standardizing the naming of the living organisms of a particular organisms in this world, we will be calling it as a nomenclature. Okay. Obviously, nomenclature nomenclature or naming is only possible when the organism is described correctly, and we know that what organism is the name is attached to, this is called identification. So if you see the nomenclature and the naming of an organism, we have to describe it correctly. Okay, under which organism it is going to attach. So that particular type of attachment we will be calling it as a identification. Okay, under this nomenclature, the particular organism must be attached correctly. Okay, must be attached correctly. So that particular type of case we will be calling it as a identification. Okay, so now next. In order to facilitate this study, the number of scientists have established procedures to assign a scientific name to each known organism. So, in order to facilitate this study, scientists what they have done, they have number number of scientists have established this procedure. Means they have given scientific name for a particular organism. Okay, to facilitate the study, scientists number of scientists have established they have established the scientific names to the scientific names to each organisms. Okay, this is acceptable to biologists all over the world. So this is acceptable. So what they have said that we need to, the scientists have decided that we need to give scientific name for a particular organisms. Okay, so this has been accepted by all biologists. Okay? All biologists has accepted their decision. Okay, for plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria which are proven in International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. So in for plants, a scientific name has been agreed through a certain principles which is provided by an international code of international code of botanical nomenclature. Okay, so this we will be calling it as an ICBN. So for plants it is an ICBN. Likewise, you may ask how are animals named. So likewise the same animals are also placed under a scientific animal organisms are also given a scientific names. Okay, animal taxonomists have evolved International Code of Zoological Nomenclature. So for animals they have given ICZN, means international 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 code of zoological nomenclature. We have animals have been replaced under this ICZN. Okay, so these two are important which we will have to note down. Okay. Sorry. Now, the scientific names ensures that each organism has only one. So they have decided that we have to give one organism, one scientific name. One organism, only one scientific, only one scientific name. Okay. Description of any organism should enable the people in any part of the world to arrive at the same name. So instead of getting confusion of these particular organisms, they have named this single organism has been named as a named with a single scientific name. Okay. They also ensure that such a name has not been used for any other known organism. So if the single organism is named under with a one scientific name, so this scientific name is not replaced to another organism. Okay, they are not going to give the same name to the other organisms. For one organism, only single scientific name is given. Biologists follow universally accepted principles to provide scientific names to known organisms. So biologists have followed only the scientific names to know the organisms. Okay. Each name has two components. One is generic and the specific epithet. So they have named the scientific names under two components. One is generic name, one is generic name, and another one is specific epithet. Okay. So under these two components they have named the organisms. This system of providing a name with the two components is called a binomial nomenclature. So these two names we will be calling it as a binomial nomenclature. Okay. This naming system given by Linnaeus, Carolus Linnaeus is being practiced by biologists all over the world. So this binomial nomenclature this system was given by a scientist Carolus Linnaeus. Okay, Carolus Linnaeus has named this system under practicing the biologist all over the world. This naming system using a two words format was found convenient. So he found that this binomial nomenclature two system format is convenient for them to understand the organisms. Okay, let us take the example of mango. Understand the way of providing scientific names better. So if we see the example of mango, so Carolus Linnaeus has taken the mango species. Okay, he has named this mango a scientific name. The scientific name of mango is written in a Magnifera indica. So he named the mango as a Manginifera. Sorry, this is a small letter indica. So we have to write this in a italic format. Okay. So the mango is written like this. We have to write capital M, rest all small letters. Magnifera and indica must be a small letter. This is the name given by the Carolus Linnaeus, scientist. Okay, let us see how it is a binomial name. So let us see how this name is a binomial name. In this name, Magnifera represents the genus, while Indica is a particular species. So in this, Magnifera is a genus. Okay, this Magnifera comes under a genus, and an Indica comes under a species. Okay, Indica comes under a species or a specific epithet. Species or a specific epithet. Okay. So other universal rules of nomenclature are as follows. So here he has given some rules for nomenclature. First one is binomial names are generally in Latin and written in italics. So as here they have mentioned that binomial names must be always in a Latin and are written in italics only. Okay, they are Latinized or derived from Latin irrespective of their origin. So this Magnifera Indica has been derived from the Latinized. Okay, they have found the Magnifera Indica from a Latin and written in a italic form. We have to write the Magnifera Indica in a italic form. Okay. Second one. The first word in a biological name represents the genus, while the second component denotes the specific epithet. So the first word means it is a Magnifera. Magnifera indicates that it is represented as a genus. Okay, Magnifera represented as a genus, and Indica is represented as a species or a specific epithet. Right. So this is the second point. Third point is both the words in a biological name, when handwritten, are separately underlined and printed in italics to indicate their Latin word. So if we write the Magnifera Indica with the handwritten, then we need to underline it. Okay. So we need to underline this like this. If we are writing in a handwritten cases. If we are printing it in a paper, then we need to write it in a italic format. Okay, we have to print it in a italic format itself. Okay. Fourth point, the first word denoting the genus starting with a capital letter, while the specific epithet starts with a small letter. It can be illustrated with the example Magnifera Indica. So here what they are saying that the genus must be started with the capital letter M. So we have to start with the capital letter Magnifera, and the and followed by the indica, which is a which we have to write it in a small letter itself. Okay, this specific epithet must be in a small letter itself. Okay, naming of the author appears after the specific epithet, that is at the end of the biological name, and is written in abbreviated form. So if we see the name of the author, which is appear after the specific epithet, then at the end of the biological names it is written in a abbreviated form. Okay, like example, they have given Magnifera indica Lin. So the scientist Carol Linnaeus has been derived this scientific name. So this has been given as a Magnifera indica. So Lin. Lin means Carolus Linnaeus scientist's name has been attached to this scientific name. Okay. It indicates that this species was first described by Linnaeus. So this species has been first described by a Carolus Linnaeus. Okay, he is the scientist first who discovered first about the Magnifera indica scientific name. Since it is nearly impossible to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise some means to make this possible. So, since it is difficult to study all the living organisms, it is necessary to devise the make possible outcomes. Means we have to classify them. Okay, this is process is a classification. So we have to classify them. Classify them means we have to keep the scientific names under a classification to avoid the confusion. Classification is the process by which anything is grouped into convenient categories based on some easily observable characters. So if you see the classification, it is a process where anything which we can group into our convenient categories. Okay, classification means we can group into our convenient categories. So we can categorize the scientific organisms based on our convenience. For example, we easily recognize groups such as plants or animals or dogs, cats or insects. So if we recognize any of the groups like plants, animals, likewise we can classify them. Okay, plants, animals, dogs, cats. So we can classify them separately. This we will be calling it as a classification. Okay. The moment we use any of these terms, we associate certain characteristics with the organism in that field. So the moment we use this plant, animal, dog, cat, these organisms are comes under a certain groups. Okay, these names are coming under a certain groups. Okay, so next we will see. Next is obviously each one of us will see dogs. So obviously we are going to see our surroundings. The dogs are present, right? So likewise, and not cats. So if the dogs are visible, only dogs are there. If we see the cats, only the cats are present. If dogs are present, cats are not going to present. No cats can be seen. Okay. If cats are seen, no dogs are seen. Right. So this is the vice versa. Now if we were think were to think of Alsatians, Alsatians. If we think of Alsatians, we know that what we are talking about. So Alsatians means similarly. Suppose we were to say mammals. So we are human beings. We can be calling it as a can call human beings as a mammals. Mammals. Human beings comes under a mammals classification. Okay? Mammals category. Human beings comes under a mammals category. You would of course think of animals with external ears and body hairs. Likewise in plants. So if we see that mammals have a external ears. Okay? External ears. Sorry. Under mammals, human beings also are there. Along with that, we can see the certain animals also. Okay? Certain animals also comes under the mammals. Okay? Mammals external ears and body hairs are present. Okay? We are also having the body hairs. Okay? We are having ears, external ears, right? Likewise, in plants, if we try to talk of wheat, so likewise in plants, if we try to talk of wheat, the picture is each of our minds will be wheat plant, not of rice or any other. So if we think about the wheat, then in our minds only the wheat picture is going to be occurred. Okay, we are going to think about only the wheat, not rice or any other species. Okay. Hence all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheat, rice, plants, hence, all these dogs, cats, mammals, wheats, rice, plants, animals, etc. are convenient categories we use to study organisms. So, for us, it is easier to understand these organisms are coming under separate category like dog, cat, mammal. All these are coming under separate categories, right? The scientific terms for these categories is taxa. So, we can say that this wheat, right, mammals, wheat, rice, mammals, dogs, cats, plants, animals, all these are coming under a taxa. Okay, taxa. TAXA, taxa region. Here you must recognize that taxa can indicate categories at very different levels. So we can indicate taxa in a different level. Okay, we can categorize the taxa in a different categories. Can recognize the taxa in a different levels. Okay, plants also form a taxa. So plants can also form a taxa. Okay, they can also form a taxa, separate taxa. Okay, but you know that a dog is a mammal and mammals are animals. So we know that dog is a mammal and mammals are animals and mammals are animals. Okay. Therefore, animals, mammals, dogs represents taxa at different levels. So, this dog, mammal, and animals comes under a different level. Okay? They comes under a different levels. Okay? Hence, based on characteristics, all living organisms can be classified into a different taxa. So these all characteristics can be comes under a different characteristics of a different characteristics of a living organisms. It comes under a different characteristics of a living organism, which we can classify under a taxon. So this process we will be calling it as a taxonomy. This category we will be calling it as a taxonomy. External and internal structures along with the structure of cell, development process and ecological information of organisms are essential and form the basis of modern taxonomic studies. So we know that external and internal structures along with the structure of a cell. If we see a cell, we can observe the external and so if we see a cell, we can observe the internal structures, okay, internal structures and also outer structure, right? This is the outer, this is the external structure, okay. This is the external structure of a cell. External structure. This is the internal structure. We can observe it clearly of a cell, okay. Along with the structure of a cell, development process and ecological information, all we can observe all these types of. We can observe the structure of a cell, right? Then we can see its development. Then we can also see its ecological informations, okay? Ecological informations of an organism, which are essential for the growth, cell growth, okay? Cell growth under different taxonomic studies, under different modern taxonomic studies, okay? Hence, characterization, identification, and classification nomenclature are the process that are basics to taxonomy. So what we can say that sorry. So what we can say that this characterization, then identification, okay, identification, classification, nomenclature, all this comes under a basics of a taxonomy, okay, comes under a taxonomy. So taxonomy is not something new. So as we know that taxonomy is not something new. This is not something new. We know that human beings have always been interested in knowing more and more about the various kinds of organisms. So as we are human beings, we are interested in knowing more and more various kinds of organisms, okay, particularly with reference to their own use. So for our convenience, for our reference, for our needs, for our use, we are going to use various kinds of organisms and which we are knowing about them very well. Okay. In earlier days, human beings needed to find sources of their basic needs of food, clothing, shelter, and shelter. So in ancient times, the people used to struggle with their food, clothing, and shelter. Okay, so they used to struggle with their food, clothing, and shelter. So they are the basic needs, right? So they used to the human beings earlier days they used to find their sources. Hence, earliest classifications were based on the uses of various organisms. So these earliest classifications are based on uses of various organisms. Okay, various organisms. Various organisms. Human beings were since long not only interested in knowing more about different kinds of organisms and their diversities, but also the relationship among them. So human beings not only they are interested to know about the various kinds of organisms. Instead, they are more diversified to know their relationships. So they want to know their interests in their relationships, okay, among each organisms. This branch of study was referred to as a systematics. So that systematics we will be referring it as a human beings since long not only interested in knowing more different kinds of organisms and their diversities but also the relationship among them. This branch of study was referred to as a systematics. So human beings are not only interested in knowing the various kinds of organisms, along with that they want to know about their relationship among them. Okay, this branch of study comes under a systematics. The word systematic is derived from the Latin word systema, which means a systematic arrangement of organisms. So systema means systematic arrangement of an organisms. So systema comes under systematic arrangement of a systematic arrangement of a organism. Okay, the systema came from a Latin word. Latin word. Linnaeus used Systemae Naturae as the title of his publications. So Carolus Linnaeus, scientist, has published his paper in the name of he has published his paper on Systemae Systema Naturae. Systema Naturae. So he published his paper on title Systema Naturae. Okay. The scope of systematics was later enlarged to include identification, nomenclature, and classification. So later, the scope of adding the systematics into the paper, he has included the all these classification, identification, nomenclature in his publications. Okay, systematics taken into account evolutionary relationship between organisms. So systematics can take place in systematics can take place in account to evolutionary relationships evolutionary relationships among relationships between organisms. So that's all for today. So thank you students. If you like my online classes, you can join online. Okay, thank you so much. Bye bye.